Islam don't.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا Muhammad عليه الصلاة والسلام. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Our guest today is a special guest, Shaykh Bilal Phillips. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you guys can see, we're in Journey Faith Conference 2009, second annual. Shaykh Bilal Phillips, I just want to ask you to give us a brief background about yourself, where you come from, when did you embrace Islam, why, and things like that.
Well, I was born in Jamaica. My family migrated to Canada when I was a child, 7 years old. So I grew up here in Toronto, went to school here, and they moved, when I graduated from high school, they moved to Malaysia. So I lived there for about 3 years, and I went to college in Vancouver, majoring in biochemistry. And got caught up in the Communist Party, Communist movement, sidetracked into that for a few years, and then realized that this really wasn't the answer for my life or as a way to bring about change in society. And then I became exposed to Islam. And alhamdulillah, teachings made sense, and I accepted it.
Alhamdulillah. Did anything...
in Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto, that's good, alhamdulillah. Anything especially, any incident that happened to your life actually, what made you think about coming to Islam?
Well, it was, in a sense, it was by default. I mean, I checked out everything else. And when a friend of mine had accepted Islam, that caused me to say, okay, let me have a look at Islam. And then after reading its teachings, the book, Islam the Misunderstood Religion by Muhammad Qutb, this is the book really that had a major impact because it was an analytical text where he compared Islam, Christianity, socialism, capitalism, from all of the various aspects, economics, moral principles, social, from all of the various aspects, and then it became clear that Islam really was the answer. Islam was the thing which could really transform society, make a better society in which people could live. So it was really that simple. But I mean, the actual instance of accepting Islam, it wasn't immediately after reading the book, although you could say I was intellectually convinced about Islam. What it required after that was some spiritual awakening, because after denying God's existence for a few years, it's not just that easy to just turn around and say, okay, I believe in God again.
Right.
So it took me a little bit of time, and of course, most people are sincere and they want the truth, then He's gonna make it possible for them to realize that truth.
Alhamdulillah. I'm sure a lot of viewers out there would ask themselves the question, okay, I'm a Muslim now. What does it take for me to become a mu'min? Once you become a Muslim, okay, faith is, I guess, it's different levels. So for you to become a mu'min, what do you have to do basically?
One has to be consistent in doing the basic requirements which have been defined, the 5 pillars of Islam, and understand the pillars of Iman, to understand them in terms of what their goals are, what is it that we're supposed to really get out of them, not just to be able to list them and rattle them off, but really what does it mean in my life? What is belief in Qadr? How should I live my life based on this belief? How should it impact on me? So by having that kind of understanding, then you have a basis for growth. And the Prophet ﷺ had pointed out that the person becomes closer to Allah by doing the things, first and foremost, which Allah made obligatory on him. After that, then it's about doing the supererogatory deeds, what we call the sunnahs, or the nawafil. So we start to do those. Additional fasting twice every week, additional 3 times in the month. Prayer is not just doing the fard. Fard is over, you're running out the masjid as if you had smelled something bad, you just get on out of there,
Right.
So you sit there, you reflect, you build a love for the masjid. Your heart should become attached to the masjid. How? By spending time in the masjid. Spending time reflecting, reading the Quran, making dua. So the more supererogatory or voluntary acts of worship you do, the closer you become. That's what Prophet ﷺ said, that you keep on doing those until Allah becomes the eyes with which you see. Meaning you're only going to see the things which are pleasing to Allah. Not that the bad things are not there, they're not going away, right? But, they'll not be always your eyes not always going back to them. You know what's right? Okay, it's in the periphery. You see it, you can't avoid seeing it, but your focus is on the right path. And that's where the Iman now is growing. It grows on that path of doing voluntary acts of worship, whether it's in the form of charity, umrahs, all the other acts that you can do, which are good deeds that have benefit to others, continued benefit. Prophet ﷺ had said, "Khairun nas anfa'uhum lin-nas." That's the people, those who are most beneficial to other people. So your focus is not just benefit to yourself, but you try to benefit others in what you do, whether you're in university. When you go to university, people tend to think, okay, I'm going to go to university. Well, what should I study? Okay, I'll be a doctor. Why? Because doctors make a lot of money. So the whole focus is money. What about other people? What about the benefit there is to people? If we don't have that sense of consciousness of a mission that we have in this life and about what is pleasing to God, then we can't grow. So we have to choose our professions based on the things that we like on one hand, but on the other hand, professions which are going to benefit the community. Not just benefit ourselves, but we're going to benefit in a good way. We're going to provide back to the community what they provided for us.
So how can we today as a society or a community, what can we do to attract more youth to Islam and bring them back? As we see a lot more youth is coming back to Islam and they're hungry for knowledge, they're humble. What more can we do to bring them back to Islam and teach them a little bit about it?
Well, to bring them back, I think it is to take Islam beyond, commandments, orders, just do's and don'ts. That Islam can be incorporated in many other ways. For example, in Qatar, I started what we call a Saturday program for youth. In this Saturday program, the youths were taught basketball skills by professionals, football skills, swimming skills, jiu-jitsu. We had professionals teach us all these things. They loved this. This is fun. This is great. But in the middle of it all, we also had some half an hour, 40 minutes of Islamic class there, where teacher who's teaching again is a professional teacher who knows how to make learning fun. Because of course you don't want to have a class which is just like, back to class again. I'm back in school, he's going to sit down here, this guy's going to tell us his story. And no, it should be done in a fun way. So you need teachers who specialize in teaching children. They know how to keep them occupied, keep them attracted, young people, right? So in that way, you try to mix both together. The sports aspects, the fun aspects attracts them. It's halal. We choose the halal aspects because of course there are haram aspects there too. The halal aspects is a means to attract them. And then when you got them, you give them the necessary information that they need to rebuild their faith. And you have for them, of course, good mentors, people who they can look up to, they can respect because of their achievements, people who are close to their own age group, who they can relate to.
Now I understand that you wrote over 100 books. And which book is your favorite, and which book do you recommend people to read?
Well, actually, I didn't write 100 books. That's not really correct. People are saying that, but if you include what has been edited and translated and everything, yeah, it's over 100.
Okay.
What I actually wrote was maybe over 50 books. Right? Just to set the record straight.
No problem.
But the issue in terms of my most recommended books, of course, the most important one is the Fundamentals of Tawheed. And after that, it really is Tafsir, Surah, and Hujurat. Because these are two books which had, a very large impact on a lot of people. Surah Hujurat deals with a lot of very practical things related to community and the issues of community. And Fundamentals of Tawheed deals with the foundation of the faith. To get that clear, have people have a clear picture of what really we're supposed to be believing in.
How can a person balance in our life today, living in the West, between culture and religion? And what can we do to stay on the right path?
Well, culture we have to put in its proper context. Culture is only acceptable if it is not in opposition to Islamic teachings. So whatever is in opposition, we have to let go. We have to drop it. We have to leave it. What isn't in opposition, we say is mubah. It's permissible. Do it or not do it. As long as we keep things in the proper context. Of course, you need to have knowledge of the religion to be able to make these kind of decisions. So the principle of seeking knowledge, talabul ilmi farida ala kulli Muslim, seeking knowledge is compulsory for every Muslim. That principle is an ongoing principle. Whatever walk of life that you are stepping into, you should have sufficient Islamic knowledge that you can do that thing you want to do in a way which is pleasing to Allah.
How can you define an extremist in Islam?
An extremist is one who has gone beyond the prophetic example. He's gone to extremes, either in doing things or in not doing things. Because you can have two ends of extremism. The Muslim who says, my Islam is in my heart. I don't pray 5 times a day, I don't fast Ramadan. That's extreme. It's extreme neglect. And such a person is dangerous. Islam is only in his heart. Watch out. On the other hand, you have the other one who says, Islam means we have to be getting a weapon and going killing somebody. It's about, killing. You've got to be out there. Jihad. It's not to say there isn't jihad. There's jihad, there's a time and a place. But for you to be, somebody to come and tell you, no, get out of school, leave school, school's not any important anymore in this, you need to be just getting that weapon and, let's go fight. Blow up something. No. This is not the way of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everything has its place. When we take things out of their context and put them in places where they don't belong, then we end up with extremism. Even people who say, no, we need to fast every day. We need to pray every night. Going to extremes in the practices beyond what even the Prophet ﷺ did. And requiring others to do it. Okay, if you personally want to do extra, no harm. When you start to promote that on others, promote it as things that others should do, this is when become harmful in the extremes that you've gone to. So, the best way to protect oneself from extremism and extremist elements is to know Islam. If you know what Islam is, then the extremists cannot promote their ideas. Either way. Either in neglect or in overdoing or doing things which you're not supposed to be doing.
See, a lot of people out there misunderstand the definition and what Islam really means. If you can just tell us briefly what Islam is all about and what it means, so the viewers can get an idea and clear misconceptions about Islam.
Well, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had summarized the whole of Islam in one term, morality. That Islam is geared towards creating a morally sound and righteous human being. Morally sound in terms of his or her relationship with God, with his fellow human beings, or in the society or the world in which he or she lives. So Islam provides clarity, and at the same time it provides direction, so that every aspect of life should be lived in accordance with the commandments of God. So this is really what we're headed for. This is really what Islam wants. That one lives a complete life dedicated to God, meaning dedicated to serving God. Being, in other words, you're doing a life which is in accordance with what is pleasing to God. And in that is ultimate righteousness.
Shaykh Bilal Phillips, I want to thank you today for being with us. Thank you for taking this time to take this interview. And
My pleasure.
it's always nice to see you, inshallah.
Good to see you again.
Inshallah. Our viewers, I want to thank you for watching this at the Journey of Faith 2009. Assalamu alaikum.